In the quaint village of Greendale, an elderly man named Edward lived in a small, cozy cottage at the edge of town. His cottage, with its overgrown garden and ivy-covered walls, seemed to be a relic from another time. Edward was known to everyone in the village for his remarkable ability to spin tales from his past, a gift that kept him perpetually surrounded by a captivated audience. Every morning, he would sit on the wooden bench by the village square, greeting passers-by with a warm smile and an invitation to hear one of his many stories. Edward's life had been a tapestry of rich experiences, woven with threads of adventure, love, and loss. He would often begin his stories with a twinkle in his eye, saying, "Ah, let me tell you about the time when," and his listeners, from curious children to nostalgic elders, would gather around, eager to be transported to another time and place. Among his favorite stories were those of his youthful escapades, tales that painted a vivid picture of a bygone era. One sunny afternoon, as Edward settled onto his bench with a cup of tea, a group of teenagers approached him, intrigued by the stories they had heard from their grandparents. "Mr. Edward," one of them said, "can you tell us about your greatest adventure?" Edward chuckled, his eyes crinkling with amusement. "Ah, the greatest adventure," he mused. "Well, that would have to be the summer of 1955, when I was just a lad of 17. The teenagers leaned in closer as Edward began his tale. "It was a summer like no other," he said. "I had just finished school and was eager to explore the world beyond our little village. My best friend, Jack, and I decided to embark on a journey to the coast. We had no money, just a couple of bicycles and a thirst for adventure. Our plan was simple, to see as much as we could and meet as many people as possible." Edward's eyes glazed over as he recalled the excitement of that summer. "We pedaled for days, through fields of golden wheat and sleepy hamlets, until we reached the sea. The sight of the vast, endless ocean took our breath away. We camped on the beach, under the stars, and it was there, amidst the sound of crashing waves, that I met her, Isabella." He paused, a nostalgic smile playing on his lips. "Isabella was unlike anyone I had ever met," Edward continued. "She was a local girl, with fiery red hair and a spirit as wild as the sea. She introduced herself with a grin and challenged me to a race along the shoreline. I lost, of course, but in losing, I found something far more precious. Isabella and I spent every moment of that summer together, exploring hidden coves, diving into the crystal-clear waters, and sharing our dreams." The teenagers listened, spellbound, as Edward described the magical summer. "We talked about everything," he said. "Our hopes, our fears, our plans for the future. Isabella wanted to travel the world, to see places she had only read about in books. And me, I wanted to be a writer, to capture the beauty of life in words. We promised each other that we would make our dreams come true, no matter what." Edward's voice grew softer as he recounted the end of the summer. "But as all good things must, our summer came to an end. Jack and I had to return home, and Isabella had to stay behind. We promised to write to each other, to stay in touch, but as the years passed, life got in the way. I went off to university, got a job, and eventually settled down. Letters became less frequent until they stopped altogether." The teenagers exchanged glances, sensing the melancholy in Edward's voice. "Did you ever see her again?" one of them asked. Edward shook his head, a wistful look in his eyes. "No, I never did. But I never forgot her. Isabella was my first love, and though our paths diverged, she remained a cherished memory. Sometimes, I wonder what became of her, if she fulfilled her dreams." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the village square, Edward concluded his story. "Life is full of unexpected turns," he said. We meet people who leave a lasting impact on us, and even if our paths only cross for a short while, their memory stays with us forever. Isabella taught me the joy of living in the moment and the importance of following one's heart. Over the years, Edward's stories became a staple of Greendale's culture. Tourists and villagers alike would seek him out, eager to hear his tales. One day, a young woman named Emily arrived in the village. She was a writer working on a novel about small-town life and had heard about Edward's storytelling prowess. Intrigued, she approached him, notebook in hand, and asked if she could document his stories. Edward welcomed Emily with open arms. Delighted at the prospect of his stories being immortalized in print, they spent countless afternoons together, Edward recounting his adventures while Emily scribbled furiously in her notebook. "Your stories are incredible," she said one day. "They deserve to be shared with the world." Edward smiled, his eyes twinkling. "If my tales can bring joy to others, then I am content." As Emily delved deeper into Edward's past, she discovered the depth of his experiences. There were stories of his travels across Europe, his encounters with fascinating people, and his time spent as a journalist. But one story stood out to her more than the others, the tale of Isabella. "You speak of her with such fondness," Emily observed. "Have you ever tried to find her?" Edward sighed, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "I did, once," he admitted. "Years ago, I returned to the coast where we had spent that magical summer. But by then, everything had changed. The beach was gone, replaced by a bustling marina. No one remembered Isabella, and it was as if our summer together had never happened. I gave up hope of ever finding her again." Emily was moved by Edward's story and decided to help him in any way she could. "Let's try again," she suggested. "With modern technology, we have more resources at our disposal. Perhaps we can track her down." Edward was hesitant but ultimately agreed, touched by Emily's determination. They began their search, scouring old records, contacting local authorities, and utilizing social media. Weeks turned into months, and their efforts seemed futile. Yet, Emily refused to give up. She posted on various online platforms, hoping to reach someone who might know Isabella. One day, a response came from an unexpected source, a woman named Claire, who claimed to be Isabella's niece. "My aunt often spoke of a boy she met one summer," Claire wrote. "If this is the same Edward, I would love to connect you two." Edward's heart raced as he read Claire's message. Could it be? He wondered aloud. Emily reached out to Claire, arranging a meeting at a nearby cafe. The day arrived, and Edward felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. As he and Emily entered the cafe, they saw a woman with the same fiery red hair Edward remembered so well. She stood up and introduced herself as Claire, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. Claire shared stories of her aunt, confirming that she was indeed the Isabella from Edward's past. "Aunt Isabella spoke of you often," Claire said. "She never married, but she lived a full life, traveling the world just as she had dreamed. She passed away a few years ago, but she always wondered what became of you." Edward felt a pang of sorrow mixed with relief. "She followed her dreams," he whispered. "That's all I ever wanted for her." Claire handed Edward a small, weathered notebook. "She kept this all her life," she explained. "It's filled with her thoughts and memories. She wanted you to have it." Edward took the notebook with trembling hands, opening it to find pages filled with Isabella's elegant handwriting. As he read, tears filled his eyes. Her words were a testament to the love they had shared and the adventures she had embarked on. Through the notebook, Edward discovered that Isabella had indeed traveled the world, living in various countries and immersing herself in different cultures. She had written about their summer together, describing it as the most magical time of her life. "You were my first love, Edward," one entry read. And though our paths diverged, you remained in my heart. I hope you found happiness too." Edward's heart swelled with a mix of emotions as he read Isabella's words. It was as if she were speaking to him from beyond the grave, her spirit alive in the pages of her notebook. He shared the contents with Emily, who was equally moved by the depth of Isabella's feelings. "This is incredible," Emily said. "Your story needs to be told, Edward, not just for you, but for Isabella too." Inspired by Isabella's notebook, Emily and Edward decided to collaborate on a book that would chronicle their shared history. They spent countless hours piecing together the fragments of their past, weaving a narrative that captured the essence of their love and the adventures they had both experienced. Edward's memories, combined with Isabella's writings, created a poignant and beautiful story. As the book neared completion, Edward found himself reflecting on his life and the choices he had made. He realized that while he had achieved many of his dreams, there was a part of him that had always longed for something more. Isabella's memory had kept him grounded, reminding him of the importance of following one's heart and living life to the fullest. One evening, as Edward and Emily were reviewing the final manuscript, Emily turned to him and said, "You know, Edward, this book is more than just a story. It's a legacy, a testament to a love that transcended time and distance." Edward nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "You're right," he replied. "And it's a reminder that true love never truly fades." The book, titled Summer of '55, was published to widespread acclaim. Readers were captivated by the heartfelt narrative, drawn into the world of young Edward and Isabella. The story resonated with people of all ages, reminding them of the power of love and the beauty of cherished memories. Edward found himself once again surrounded by admirers, eager to hear more about his extraordinary life. As Edward continued to share his stories with the people of Greendale, he noticed a shift in his own perspective. The years of longing and regret were replaced by a profound sense of peace and gratitude. He had been given a second chance to honor Isabella's memory and to celebrate the love they had shared. Through his storytelling, he felt connected to her in a way that transcended time and space. One day, as Edward sat on his usual bench in the village square, a young couple approached him, holding a copy of Summer of '55. "Mr. Edward," the young man said, "your book inspired us to follow our dreams and cherish the moments we have together. Thank you for sharing your story with the world." Edward smiled, feeling a warmth in his heart. "I'm glad my story could touch your lives," he replied. "Remember, love is the greatest adventure of all." Edward's days were filled with joy as he continued to connect with people through his stories. He had found a renewed sense of purpose, and his cottage, once a solitary retreat, became a hub of activity and laughter. Friends, old and new, would visit him, eager to share their own experiences and listen to his wisdom. Edward realized that his life, with all its twists and turns, had been a rich tapestry of love and connection. As time went on, Edward's bond with Emily grew stronger. She became not only his collaborator but also a cherished friend. They would spend evenings discussing life, love, and the stories that had shaped them. Emily often remarked on how fortunate she felt to have met Edward and to have been part of his incredible journey. "You've taught me so much," she said one night, "about storytelling, about love, and about living." With an open heart, Edward smiled, grateful for the companionship that Emily had brought into his life. "And you, my dear, have given me the opportunity to share my story with the world," he replied. "I couldn't have done it without you." Their friendship was a testament to the power of human connection, a reminder that the bonds we form with others are what give our lives meaning and purpose. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Edward's health began to decline. Despite this, he remained a vibrant presence in the village, his spirit undiminished. He continued to tell his stories, drawing strength from the love and support of those around him. One autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and the air grew crisp, Edward gathered his friends and family for a special announcement. I have lived a long and fulfilling life, Edward sighed, his voice strong despite his frailty. And I am grateful for every moment. But now, it is time for me to rest. I want you all to know that I have found peace and contentment. My stories will live on, and through them, so will I. His words were met with tears and applause, a testament to the impact he had made on the lives of those around him. That night, as Edward lay in bed, he felt a deep sense of tranquility. He closed his eyes, envisioning the faces of those he had loved and lost, and those who had enriched his life. He thought of Isabella, her fiery hair and adventurous spirit, and felt a profound connection to her. We had our summer, he whispered. And it was beautiful. With that, he drifted into a peaceful sleep. Edward passed away quietly in his sleep, leaving behind a legacy of love and storytelling. The village of Greendale mourned his loss but celebrated his life with a festival in his honor. They shared his stories, read from Summer of '55, and remembered the man who had brought so much joy and wisdom into their lives. Edward's cottage became a memorial, a place where people could come to reflect and be inspired by his life. Emily, deeply affected by Edward's passing, continued to carry the torch of his legacy. She dedicated herself to preserving his stories and sharing them with future generations. She compiled a collection of his lesser-known tales, creating a sequel to Summer of '55 that delved even deeper into Edward's extraordinary life. The new book, Echoes of Greendale, was met with the same enthusiasm and appreciation as the first. As the years went by, Emily found herself often returning to Greendale, drawn by the memories of Edward and the impact he had on her life. She took on the role of a mentor to young writers, encouraging them to explore their own stories and to find their unique voices. Edward taught me the power of storytelling, she would say, and it's a gift I want to pass on to others. One day, while visiting the village square, Emily noticed a young boy sitting on Edward's old bench, a notebook in hand. He was sketching the scene before him, capturing the essence of the bustling village. Emily approached him, curious about his work. "That's a beautiful drawing," she remarked. The boy looked up and smiled. "Thank you," he said. "I'm trying to capture the stories of this place." Emily was struck by the boy's passion and talent. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jacob," he replied. "I'm fascinated by the history of Greendale. My grandmother used to tell me stories about a man who lived here, a storyteller named Edward." Emily's heart warmed at the mention of her old friend. "I knew Edward well," she said. "He was an incredible storyteller. Would you like to hear some of his stories?" Jacob's eyes lit up with excitement. "Yes, please," he said eagerly. Emily sat down beside him and began to recount some of Edward's most beloved tales. As she spoke, she felt a sense of connection to both Edward and Jacob, as if the past, present, and future were intertwined in a beautiful dance. She realized that Edward's legacy would continue to live on, inspiring new generations of storytellers. As the sun set over Greendale, casting a warm glow over the village, Emily and Jacob continued to share stories and dreams. Emily felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she was honoring Edward's memory by passing on his gift of storytelling. "Remember, Jacob," she said, "the power of a story lies in its ability to connect people and to inspire them to dream." Jacob nodded, his young mind buzzing with ideas and possibilities. "I want to be a storyteller, just like Edward," he declared. Emily smiled, seeing a spark of Edward's spirit in the boy. Quote, "You have the heart of a storyteller," she said, "and I have no doubt that you will touch many lives with your words." With that, she handed Jacob a copy of Summer of '55, a symbol of the enduring power of love and memory. Over the years, Jacob grew into a talented writer, his stories infused with the wisdom and warmth that Edward had passed down through Emily. He traveled the world, gathering experiences and meeting people from all walks of life. But he always returned to Greendale, the place where his passion for storytelling had been kindled. The village remained a source of inspiration and a reminder of the enduring power of love and connection. Jacob often visited Edward's memorial, paying his respects to the man who had inspired him. He would sit on the old wooden bench, reflecting on the stories he had heard and the ones he had yet to tell. It was during one of these visits that he encountered an elderly woman named Margaret, who had known Edward in his later years. He was a remarkable man, she said. His stories brought joy to so many. Margaret shared her own memories of Edward, adding new layers to the rich tapestry of his life. He had a way of making everyone feel special, she said. He listened with his heart and spoke with his soul. We were all richer for having known him. Jacob was deeply moved by her words and felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that storytelling was not just about entertaining others, but about creating connections and preserving memories. Inspired by Margaret's recollections, Jacob decided to embark on a new project, a collection of stories from the people of Greendale. He interviewed villagers, young and old, capturing their experiences and the impact Edward had on their lives. The result was a book titled The Heart of Greendale, a tribute to the village and the man who had touched so many hearts. The Heart of Greendale was received with overwhelming enthusiasm, both within the village and beyond. Readers were drawn to the heartfelt stories, each one a testament to the power of community and the enduring legacy of Edward's storytelling. Jacob felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that he had honored Edward's memory and contributed to the rich tradition of storytelling in Greendale. As Jacob continued his journey as a storyteller, he remained committed to preserving the spirit of Edward's legacy. He founded a writer's workshop in Greendale, offering aspiring writers a space to hone their craft and share their stories. The workshop became a vibrant hub of creativity, attracting people from near and far who were inspired by the village's rich history and the memory of Edward's storytelling. Emily, now retired, watched with pride as Jacob carried forward the torch of storytelling. She often visited the workshop, offering guidance and encouragement to the new generation of writers. "Edward would be so proud of you," she told Jacob one day. "You've not only kept his memory alive but have also created a new legacy of your own." Jacob smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the path that had been paved before him. As the years passed, the village of Greendale continued to thrive, its history and stories woven into the fabric of everyday life. Edward's Bench remained a symbol of the power of storytelling, a place where people came to reflect and be inspired. The annual Storytelling Fair